Last year, I made some bold predictions about where the markets were going to go in 2023, and I'm going to make the same predictions for 2024. For 2024, I don't think there's going to be a recession either. I think if we see that unemployment stays relatively consistent, there's not going to be a recession. I think that the market's going to end positively. We may see a correction here and there, but nothing like a depression or anything significant that's going to be of worry to long-term investors. I believe all the volatility we're going to see in the market is going to be driven by the upcoming election. And we know for a fact that the Fed wants to reduce interest rates by 75 basis points. And that's going to affect a lot of how we see things play out in the housing market. And in fact, the stock market is already assuming this information. And if it doesn't happen, then you'll see the market move in a different direction. And lastly, my prediction for 2024 is that housing, well, it's going to stay highly priced. In fact, the market needs to be more competitive. So we're probably going to see more creative programs that are going to encourage more buying. You're going to see programs that may convert commercial real estate into residential. And I think we're seeing a new normal with high home prices. So that's going to affect how things move forward. But overall, I still have a relatively positive outlook for 2024. So let me tell you why. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Maoli Vodi. I spent nearly a decade as a stockbroker and investment consultant. I've helped thousands of people with their investments and educating them on how to continue to be diverse. And as far as my opinions are concerned, they're solely my own. And they come with experience. I've been invested in these markets for over 15 years. And I've seen some of these patterns before, so that's why I'm giving you this opinion. But at the end of the day, if you are a long-term investor, you should just remain invested long-term and diverse. If you're approaching retirement, then this is not particularly for you. You'd more than likely want to be a little bit more conservative with what you're doing so that you're going to be able to live off of what you have. I believe when it comes to investing, long-term investing and often investing is what works best. I've tried being a day trader, a swing trader. To me, that's not where my time is best spent. And when it comes to a market analysis, you'll come to find that a lot of financial analysts and pundits that you see on TV, they offer opinions very regularly, and they have a lot of research, and I've researched as well. But at the end of the day, whether they're right or wrong, they're still able to offer their opinions, and they're still paid handsomely for these opinions. And it's very common to see them be completely wrong. So I want you to take that into consideration when you understand different analyses or opinions about investing or where the markets are going. But another reason why I'm offering this opinion is because all of the predictions I made for 2023 were correct. Let me explain. And one of my last predictions for 2023 was that the crypto market was going to continue going up. Not necessarily only in 2023, but it was going to be progressing upward in the long term. I was a little bit surprised that it went up so quickly in 2023. But for example, you had cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. There were 16,000 for one coin in December 2022. And then you have now in 2023 where it's rallied over 160%. And Bitcoin is not by itself. You know, when it comes to cryptocurrencies, there are thousands, and a lot of them are not going to do well. But the top ones, they're going to perform very well over time because there's more momentum behind them. There are big believers in them. And when crypto had a fallout several months ago, it's mainly because the newer, unfamiliar investors in crypto pulled their money out. But those who are prepared and want to buy and hold it for long term and want to have some cash alternatives, they're in it for the long haul. So Bitcoin wasn't alone in its upward progression. Like for example, you had XRP that was up 76% for 2023. Cardano up 148% for 2023. Ethereum up 87%. Solana up over 600%. And that's mainly because you have this upward momentum. We see that cash is expensive in 2023 with higher interest rates. So investors, especially those in the currency markets, understand that having the alternatives in a highly digital society is something that's worthwhile. There are many other cryptocurrencies that will not reach or attain that level of upward mobility. But crypto, just remember, it's separate from the stock market. It moves in a completely different fashion, but there are some similarities when it comes to investing and the investing mindset. When it came to talks about a recession, in 2022, they said, hey, we didn't have a recession, but textbook definitions tell you that a recession is 2 negative quarters of GDP. So that's the gross domestic product. So the production of the country. If it's negative for 6 months, then they call it a recession. But for some reason, they did not want to call it that. And the recession technically happened the first 6 months of 2022. So that's why I didn't believe there was going to be a recession in 2023. And a recession on average happens every 5 to 8 years. They're very sporadic and they're very, very hard to predict. And this is why most people don't predict them properly. So I don't think there's going to be a recession in 2024. Obviously, I can be wrong, but again, we had one in 2022. The market direction. So I was actually right about this as well. And this one was much easier because, one, in 2022, the market was down about 20% for the year. So naturally, when things are down, people who have been waiting in the wings are prepared to come in and buy. And rightfully so, they did. So in 2023, stock market's up over 20%. And you'll tend to see patterns like this. When you stretch out the stock market over time, you will find that there are much less down years and way more up years. So it's easier to predict that the market will be up over time versus understanding the down years, because they happen and they're common, but they're few and far between. My next prediction that was correct was the tech layoffs. So if you remember this, for the later half of 2022, there were a lot of tech companies that were laying people off in masses. And layoffs are common, but not necessarily in this large fashion. And that's because, of course, there was a hiring spree during the pandemic. But with the tech layoffs, between June to November 2022, there were over 166,000 layoffs from large companies like Meta, Amazon, Lyft, DoorDash, Tesla, Carvana, so many different companies that were considered tech-based companies. They were laying off people in masses. And unfortunately, the stock market is somewhat cold-hearted because when there are layoffs, the stock price goes up almost immediately. But what these companies were doing they were lowering their overhead costs, which meant that a few months later, their finances would look much better when they had employees off the books. They had more cash to use. So they did, and rightfully so. Those stocks performed very, very well in 2023. Most of the large tech companies performed very well, but it's because they reduced their overhead costs. So obviously, these are all my own opinions, but at least what I predicted in 2023 actually happened. And let's see how it goes for 2024. What are some things that you predict are going to happen? I'd love to know in the comments below. And until next time, stay present.